the next step is I've got a bunch of invoices and I want to track these invoices. And the first place that I'm going to track them is in our grant management spreadsheet. Remember when we went through this, there was two tabs that I said we'd get to later. And one is called the RTP billing tab, and the other is called the GIA billing tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter our invoices into either of these two tabs, and then we're going to enter them into our forms later on. So I'm going to pull up my grant management spreadsheet. I'm going to go to the RTP billing tab, and you can see that I've entered some data here. So the first column is invoice number. I put in an invoice number, the vendor name, MG excavation, the description, excavator work, the amount, $12,922. And then underneath the sent to treasurer, I also added this invoice date. But essentially, whenever I get a bill from a vendor, I always send it to our treasurer right away to get paid. So I usually put the invoice date here. And what this does is it helps to remind me when that invoice came in. And if I happen to look at this 2 or 3 weeks down the road and I still don't see a canceled check for it, it says to me, something's wrong here. I sent this to the treasurer. For whatever reason, it hasn't been paid. I need to follow up. The next column is canceled check received. So the idea would be you send this to the treasurer issues the check goes out to the vendor, and then the vendor cashes the check, and then it shows up in our bank account as a canceled check. If you do not have access to your bank account for your club, I strongly suggest that you do get access, because it does help to cut down the amount of time that it takes to get your canceled checks. In the summer season, I check our bank account daily to look for canceled checks. And the reason I need this is because the Trails Bureau will not reimburse you for any expenses unless you have a copy of both the front and the back of the check. And so I can sign into our bank account, see that a check has shown up. I can then print out a copy of that check with the front and the back, and then store it for my reimbursement, my billing. I pop the check. So once I get the canceled check, I pop the check number here. And then these columns here, I fill out when I send a billing to Bureau of Trails, when I get a payment from the Bureau of Trails, and then I also post a payment amount. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is so, first of all, I want to make sure that I send all this stuff into the Bureau of Trails, which is why we've got this column here. When you got all this paper flying around, it's really easy to lose track of it. The payment confirmed is very important, because I might have applied, for a reimbursement to the Trails Bureau, but maybe they lost it. Maybe they decided they weren't going to pay us for some reason. And so, I got to be able to look at these columns and say, gee, this was sent in, but it's never been paid. And then the payment amount is important, because sometimes the Trails Bureau decides that they're going to short you on payments for some reason. It could be they don't think it's a valid expense. It could be they made a mistake, or it could be that you've exceeded the amount of grants that grant amount that you were given. But in any case, if I send a check in for 12,000 and they only send me 10 back, I want to know what's the reason. And it has happened to me before. And most of the times it's a mistake on the Trails Bureau part. So you can see I also have a couple of clay gravel invoices that I entered here, and check numbers and so on. So let me flip over to the GIA billing. Very similar setup. Again, I've got invoice number here for White Mountain Lumber for a culvert I purchased. Total is $670. The invoice date was 5/9/23. We got the canceled check back on 5/12/23. Check number 430. It was sent to the Bureau of Trails on 5/26/23. Payment was confirmed on 6/15/23, and they paid us the full amount for that culvert. And then this has an additional column which says sent to RTP as a match, because you remember that on your RTP, 20% of it needs to be a match. So we're using some of our GIA expenses as part of that match, and I don't want to forget to do that. So that's why I've got this column here that tells me, yes, I did send it over to RTP as a match.